At 11:47 p.m., on a quiet Tuesday night in November, Claire Bennett's phone buzzed once in her sister's hand. One text, 7 words. Nothing about it made sense. The blue one isn't blue anymore. Her sister read it twice, squinted at the screen, and laughed it off. Maybe a typo, maybe autocorrect doing what autocorrect does at midnight. She typed back a confused reply, got no response, and eventually drifted off to sleep, certain she'd get an explanation, and probably an eye roll in the morning. That explanation never came. She would never speak to Claire again. 3 days later, detectives would stand in a small evidence room in the Millbrook Police Department, staring at that same sentence pinned to a corkboard under fluorescent light, because it had become the only real clue in the entire case. Not a photograph, not a call log, not a witness. 7 strange, almost meaningless words that would eventually crack the case wide open in a way no one saw coming. This is the story of how a nonsense text message became the single most important piece of evidence in one of the strangest disappearances a small Ohio town had ever seen. And by the end, you'll understand exactly why investigators still call it one of the smartest, most quietly desperate messages they've ever had to decode. Claire Bennett was 28 years old, a dental hygienist who just started renting her first solo apartment on the edge of Millbrook, a quiet town of about 9,000 people. The kind of place where neighbors still waved at cars they recognized and everybody's grandmother knew everybody else's business.
She was, by every account, unremarkable in the best possible way. She texted her mother every single morning, without fail. She had a standing Sunday dinner tradition with her younger sister Dana, one they'd kept going since college. She loved hiking, terrible reality television, and a golden retriever named Biscuit, who she co-parented with her ex-roommate. She was also 3 months into a relationship with a man named Ryan Foss, a local contractor she'd met through a mutual friend at a backyard barbecue that spring. Her family described the relationship as fine. Never enthusiastic, never alarmed, just quietly unremarkable, the way new relationships often are before anyone's fully decided how they feel.
Nothing in Claire's routine suggested danger. No red flags, no late-night arguments overheard through apartment walls, no unfamiliar cars parked outside for too long. Just an ordinary Tuesday that, without any warning at all, turned into the last ordinary day of her life. At 9:15 p.m., she texted Dana that she was heading out to grab a quick dinner before an early shift the next morning. Nothing unusual, a message she'd sent 100 times before. At 11:47 p.m., she sent the message that would haunt the case for weeks and change the direction of an entire investigation. Then, her phone went silent, completely and permanently. When Claire didn't show up for her Wednesday morning shift, her coworkers assumed she was sick. She'd never missed a day without calling in, but everyone gets a stomach bug eventually. When she missed Thursday too, without a single call or text, her manager grew uneasy enough to phone Dana directly.
Dana drove straight to Claire's apartment, her stomach already sinking with a feeling she couldn't quite name. The door was locked. The lights were off. Mail was piling up in the box downstairs. And in the parking lot, the space where Claire always kept her silver sedan sat completely empty. By Friday morning, less than 60 hours after that final text, Dana filed a missing persons report with the Millbrook Police Department. Detective Sarah Reyes, a 12-year veteran of the force, known throughout the department for her methodical, almost obsessive approach to cold leads, caught the case. The first break came fast, almost suspiciously fast. Claire's car was located just after noon, abandoned in a gravel lot behind a shuttered diner 11 miles outside town, a place that had been closed for nearly 2 years. The keys were still in the ignition. Her purse sat untouched on the passenger seat, wallet and cash inside. Her phone, however, was nowhere to be found.
There were no signs of struggle, no blood, no forced entry, no broken glass, Nothing torn or disturbed. Just a car, quietly waiting in an empty lot, as if Claire had simply stepped out for a moment and never made it back. Detective Reyes started where every modern investigation starts: the phone. Claire's carrier confirmed the last text had been sent from her device, pinging off a tower less than a mile from the diner where her car was found. That much lined up, but the message itself refused to make sense. The blue one isn't blue anymore. Dana insisted Claire didn't own anything blue that mattered. No car, no blue-themed inside joke, nothing. Ryan, the boyfriend, claimed he had no idea what it meant either, though investigators noted he seemed unusually calm for a man whose girlfriend had vanished.
Reyes brought in the department's digital forensics analyst, a soft-spoken specialist named Marcus Doyle, to comb through Claire's phone backup. He noticed something the others had missed. The text hadn't been typed normally. The keystroke timing data, pulled from a cloud backup, showed long, unnatural pauses between words. Someone hadn't been chatting. Someone had been typing carefully, deliberately. Claire wasn't sending a message. She was sending a code. Doyle's team ran the phrase through everything: anagram solvers, cipher tools, even slang databases. Nothing fit until a rookie officer, reviewing the case file over coffee, asked an obvious question nobody had considered. What if blue wasn't a color? What if it was a name?
Reyes pulled Claire's contacts. Buried near the bottom, saved under an old nickname from high school, was a single entry: blue. Jason Ward. Jason Ward was Claire's ex-boyfriend from nearly 6 years earlier, a relationship her family barely remembered, one that had ended quietly and, as far as anyone knew, without incident. But police records told a different story. Jason Ward had been arrested twice in the past 3 years, once for stalking a different ex-partner, once for violating a restraining order. He'd moved to a rental property just 4 miles from the diner where Claire's car was found. Suddenly, the message read differently. The blue one isn't blue anymore. Jason wasn't who he used to be. Claire wasn't describing a color. She was warning someone, anyone, that the man she once knew had changed, and she'd sent that warning in the final minutes before she disappeared. Detective Reyes obtained cell tower records for Jason Ward's phone. On the night Claire vanished, his device had pinged off the same tower as Claire's, twice within 20 minutes of her final text. A search warrant followed. Inside Jason's rental property, investigators found something chilling: a folder of printed photos of Claire, some recent, taken without her knowledge from a distance, outside her apartment, in a grocery store parking lot, walking to her car after work.
He had been watching her for months, but there was no sign of Claire herself, no physical evidence placing her inside the home. Jason denied everything, claiming the photos were old and the tower ping was a coincidence. For 4 agonizing days, the case stalled. Then a canine unit, doing a wider grid search, picked up a scent near an old grain silo on an abandoned property Jason's family had once owned. Land that hadn't appeared in any lease agreement, hadn't been searched, and wasn't in his name. What police found inside that silo changed everything. Claire was alive. Dehydrated, injured, terrified, but alive. She'd been held there for 6 days, in a space Jason had quietly prepared weeks earlier, long before that final night. Investigators believe he'd planned to isolate her from the beginning, and that the abandoned property had been chosen specifically because it belonged to no one on paper.
Claire later told detectives that when Jason showed up outside the diner that night, offering to talk, she sensed something was wrong immediately. She managed to send the text while he stepped away from his car,
encoding a warning in the only way she thought he wouldn't catch, a reference only her family might eventually piece together. It worked. It just took 4 investigators, a forensic analyst, and a rookie's hunch to understand it in time. Jason Ward was arrested on site without incident. He was later charged with kidnapping, aggravated stalking, and unlawful restraint. Charges that, given the aggravating factors in his prior record, carried the possibility of decades behind bars.
6 months later, Jason Ward pleaded guilty rather than face trial, accepting a lengthy prison sentence that would keep him incarcerated for the better part of 2 decades. Claire, for her part, has slowly rebuilt her life. She rarely speaks publicly about what happened, but in one of her only statements to local media, she said something that investigators still repeat in training sessions today. "I didn't know if anyone would understand it. I just knew I had one chance to say something that only made sense to the people who really knew me." It's a case that continues to circulate among detectives, not because of its violence, but because of its ingenuity. A reminder that survival instincts can show up in the smallest, strangest details. A misplaced word, an odd phrase, a text that, on its surface, made absolutely no sense at all. Until it did. If this story kept you on the edge of your seat, make sure to subscribe for more true crime cases that prove the smallest clues often solve the biggest mysteries.